Hello everyone, it's Merlin here, and today I have a little discussion for you regarding an anime series known as Bleach. I'm sure a few of you have heard of it. This video is coming as a response to Kill an Anime. He did a little video a while back examining the character of Ichigo Kurosaki, and I thought it was very well done. I actually really enjoyed it, so it kind of got me inspired to do this discussion video on a topic that I have thought about and I've addressed a little bit before, but I've actually really wanted to get this topic out for a long time, just to kind of get my 2 cents in on the topic. I'm sure that everybody has their own opinions, but what the hell, I'll just say something anyway. And that is regarding Bleach. Specifically, what happened to Bleach. Rewind the clock around 2006, 2007. Bleach was, for years, honestly, one of the big shonen battle series. It had its time. I still think it'll probably go down as a classic series. It will still be one that people will discuss and recommend and enjoy overall. But I honestly believe that Bleach had a lot of potential to be the next Yu Yu Hakusho. I really think it could have been one of the best shonen battle series ever. I really do. But over a period of time, the series began to go downhill, and I really felt that there was a great deal of potential there for awesome storytelling, and it just never followed through, unfortunately. Now, there are a number of reasons for this, but I think that there are two huge points that really stand out to me as to what ultimately led to Bleach being a series that people don't take that seriously anymore, and in many ways it's kind of lost the competition against One Piece and Naruto as one of the big shonen action series of the 2000s. There are two main points. Number one is probably the biggest problem with Bleach overall. I think some people have discussed this at certain points. I don't know if anybody's really talked about it in any particular detail. There was a reviewer known as Y Ruler of Time, some of you may have heard of him, who really hit the nail on the head. This is something that my friends and I have discussed over a period of time as probably the main issue with Bleach. The main issue with Bleach is a lack of focus on the main protagonists. In many ways, the series drew a lot upon Yu Yu Hakusho as a model, with the general concept of the afterlife, fighting demonic forces, the rebellious shonen hero with an attitude, which was something a little different. Now, granted, there were a lot of differences too, particularly in some of the details and stylistic choices, but in many ways, Bleach was kind of a successor to Yu Yu Hakusho. The main reason why Yu Yu Hakusho overall is a much better executed series is because it had a tight main cast that was focused on most of the time. The series followed the journey of Yusuke, Kuwabara, Kurama, and Hiei. Yu Yu Hakusho also had a rather large cast of a wide variety of different characters, but they never bogged down the main focus of the series, which is on the main protagonists, as it should be. With Bleach, on the other hand, it started off in a very similar direction, with Ichigo and Chad or Hime, that strong main cast, which is one of the reasons why the Soul Society arc really was the strongest point of the series. The first two story arcs of Bleach really are the strongest because they primarily focus on Ichigo's growth as an individual, primarily learning about how to control his powers, learning how to gain the strength that he needs to become a Soul Reaper, as well as learning a variety of secrets about the world around him. The other main characters, or primary supporting characters, served their purpose as well, had their own minor story arcs, and they definitely had a great deal of potential due to a certain amount of complexity in their backstories, or at least interesting enough personalities that it definitely seemed like their characters had potential to grow. And that is the key word with Bleach, potential. Bleach had a really unique atmosphere, excellent action scenes, a relatively original take on a new idea, with its own set of rules for the shonen battle series and the basis of the superpowers. And it had good, strong protagonists. It really did. They stood out. They were different. They served the same basic purpose as a lot of characters in other series do, but they were unique. However, as time went on, Kubo created all these side characters, a huge cast. With each new arc, it seemed like there were a dozen new characters, all the different squads from the Soul Society, more additions with the Arrancar, Aizen's followers. The list went on, and every single one of these characters, it seemed, would get a period of time where we'd have to learn about their backstory, with a constant bombardment of flashbacks over and over again, which continues to be a problem with the series throughout its run. Especially in the anime, this dragged the series out so much in the fact that we could spend entire episodes, entire chapters, completely separated from the main storyline with the main characters that the audience or readers have come to actually care about. The primary strength of Bleach was in the strength of its main characters, in that they were individuals that people really wanted to learn more about, people that they wanted to follow. Ichigo was a cool character you wanted to get behind. Unfortunately, most of Bleach seems to be focusing more on the side characters than the actual main characters that the series started with, which is one reason why many people began to lose interest. And unfortunately, this is directly tied into the fact that while Ichigo might not be getting the screen time that he deserves, in all truth, his character really hasn't progressed too much. Now, during the Soul Society arc, there was a certain amount of progression, in which Ichigo had to learn more responsibility, learning to work with others and think outside the box to overcome the odds. However, despite this potential, at the end of the day, the series fell into the typical cliches of a shonen battle series, in the sense that it ultimately became the same recurring events of defeating a series of henchmen before coming to the big boss, usually through some Deus Ex Machina power-up. In a sense, it's true, Ichigo and the other main characters don't really develop, but this isn't because they didn't have the potential to do so, but because the author decided to spend more time on all these other characters, so the development of the main protagonist would ultimately suffer. This ties into another big problem that I believe Bleach has as well, which ties directly to the potential of the series to be really good early on. Bleach had a very unique premise, and it truly focused on a lot of really interesting concepts about death and the afterlife, establishing this really interesting world of balancing spirits with demonic forces, and exploring really interesting themes about the nature of good and evil and how souls could become lost between worlds and ultimately be consumed by their own inner darkness to become hollows. Bleach has a really interesting mythology, and an incredibly unique atmosphere that separated it from most other series. Ultimately, it fell into many of the similar motifs of other shows, but it still maintained its own identity. One of the reasons I believe that the series' earliest episodes and earliest chapters were the strongest is because of those thematic points that they were exploring through their mythology. I've often said that I believe that the Hollows, as they originally were some of the most interesting monsters and overall villains of any series, and they were one of the main things that intrigued me with Bleach early on. Bleach explored the dynamics of good and evil, and suggested all these interesting possibilities about the afterlife and the direct connection of all individuals to each other. It had characters that suggested complexities through their dark and tragic backstories. In fact, all the main protagonists had this to an extent. Many fans often mock Orihime now, but the episode in which her brother ultimately became a Hollow and tried to come after her is still to this day probably my favorite episode of the series. Though I think Aizen's reveal was very good, it was ultimately way too drawn out. Early on, Bleach was much darker, and the characters seemed really respectable. One of the great strengths of any shonen series really lies in the strength of the characters themselves. And unfortunately, ultimately the repetitive nature of the action would supersede any character development, and possibilities for thematic exploration. The reason I don't talk about Bleach too much is because it's a series that, as I said, I believe had such an incredible amount of potential, and really stands out that it could have been one of the best shonen battle series of all time. And I'll say this right now, back when I was getting into it early on, Bleach was one of my favorite anime series. I think it could have replaced Dragon Ball for me. And for those of you that know me, that's saying quite a lot. Bleach was just really interesting. It had a unique atmosphere, had really cool, interesting characters with tragic backstories, a lot of potential for thematic exploration, and some intricate plot development with Aizen, a lot of world building. It had all of the great aspects that a shonen battle series is required to have to be excellent. But the combination of lack of focus on the main protagonists, as well as falling way too far into the basic cliches of shonen battle series, it really could have been one of the best. I don't believe Bleach reached the full potential that it could have. If someone were to ask me what I thought of Bleach and I was to recommend anything about it, I would tell them to watch the series, but most people generally agree that the Soul Society arc is really where the series peaked, really in its first major storyline. After that, you can honestly drop the series, because in that series, Ichigo went through a great amount of progression as a hero, overcame the odds, and won the day, as a shonen protagonist should. Beyond that, Bleach may redeem itself to some degree in the end, but at best I believe it'll be described as an average series, even though it certainly had potential to be the best. Well guys, those are my thoughts on Bleach. Do you think there were any other factors that led to Bleach going downhill? Let me know in the comments below. Alright guys, this is Merlin signing out. Until next time, peace.